how do you feel living in the United States has
Oh, and living in
in
Santa Cruz
well, yeah,
particularly
and
too.
let's say United
Yeah.
States, and on top of that, Santa Cruz has developed from what you had of those two roots of German and African.
Yeah,
What has it
well,
brought?
the impact of being in the United States and then specifically being in Santa Cruz on me really has been in terms of music. If I had been in Africa, I think I probably would not have studied music, only because both my parents were medical doctors, and there's this idea that, at least from my parents, from what I gathered, that they would have wanted me to go into sciences. So being in US really has given me that door of opportunity to actually go into what I really wanted to do, which was music. And being in Santa Cruz has added the value of being able to bring in my own culture. So I think Santa Cruz being very open and a little bit more accepting and more inviting to diversity is giving me the chance to bring in my Yoruba culture into the music.
I have another question. Back to your piece. Say in the naming ritual, what is it you, what do you feel? What are you evoking? You feel with that? It has this steady calm to it that you know. I just wonder what you're envisioning from the ritual.
I think the what I'm invoking in there is the consistency of the tradition, because really, before the language was written down, which was probably around 200 years ago, this was already, passed down from generation to generation, and you can see clearly the steadiness in the music. And so this was repeated in a very steady way from generation to generation. And so I'm trying to really show that steadiness
And
in the music.
and there's a part of that steadiness is this continual flow between the instruments, exchanging foreground melody and then passing along. And does that have any reference to how things are at the at the experience? That there's something, or is that just a musical, idea that you're developing, adding to it?
Actually, yes, you're right. Because in terms of the repetition and the way the melody then flows and then is taken over by other instruments in the music, really depicts the way that the culture is in with the Yoruba people. So, for example, even within just regular language, things are repeated over and over. So, for example, they evoke God within the language, or evoke the divine, or repeat, for example, some of the traditional rules of respecting the elders, or the world is owned by the younger people or new souls. And so within the language itself, we repeat it. So when an elder says something, the young ones tend to repeat it as well. So to sort of carry on that message, and I think that was, of course, the tradition from not having the language written hundreds of years ago. And of course, now we're still carrying on that tradition. So that's what I'm trying to express in the music as well.
Yeah, well, it gives the impression to me of very shared quality. That
Right.
it's so past, and you're keeping something afloat the whole time, and kind of like you say, it's one community.
Exactly. Yes, and it does have this feel of one community. And it does take a village, to raise a child, and you can kind of get that feel in the culture, even if you're there, that everybody is concerned about that little child, within the family or within the community, so everybody echoes the same message towards that child, and so that's what I'm trying to depict.
And do you hear the music as you're writing it in a linear way, or are you like the different ideas? Like we worked with the percussion, and it had such distinct and compacted ideas, and then you get used to it, and it's this sonic idea into itself. And I just wondered if these things unfolded in the course of the melodic ideas and the or do you hear these percussion cells as things separate unto themselves?
Actually, yes, you're right. In terms of the melody itself and the percussion or the rhythmic patterns, yeah, I hear the melody separate, and because I'm very familiar with a lot of the melodic patterns of some of the life cycle events in the culture, so that sticks with me as I'm composing, so I can hear that clearly. But when it comes to the rhythm is also separate because I could also change the rhythm to actually support the same melody, and yet I can hear that rhythm separately. So even though I'm working at the same time to compose the melody and the rhythm, but I could do them independently, and they'll still work the same way.
Mm-hmm. What do you feel that the piece leaves the listener with? Where, with the completing of the homecoming, and where do you
I
want?
think, yeah, I think what the intent in terms of what the audience should be left with is really a question, to long for more, because this is only a snippet of the tradition. And so the idea is that once people get a little taste of it, to have more curiosity to know more about the culture itself, and especially for composers to be able to get more of the melodic patterns. So, for example, the talking drum. By the way, the marimba in the pieces is really sort of acting like the talking drum because it's doing a lot of the melodic patterns. But the talking drum in of itself, in Nigeria, when somebody's actually learning how to play the talking drum, they have about 500 melodic patterns that they have to memorize to actually be a good talking drummer player. And then 500. So what I've given is just a snippet of some of those melodic patterns. So I think the question here is I want the audience to really be able to come back and say, we want more.
Cool. Always leave them wanting more.
Right.
Well, how do you feel, Eric and Leah?
Is there anything you would like to tell our audiences
Our
about what to expect at the next concert, Mandalicious, where you'll be premiering your piece?
Well, I think I'm trying to think about um, well, I mean, aside from that question, first of all, is just thanks so much, Phil and Sayaka, for the opportunity to actually do this and actually to be able to bring music to the world. Really, I think it's just amazing. I think Mandalicious, I want to be an example of what it can be, even at a later stage in life, musically, that if one has an idea and one sticks to the idea, one can get an audience at some point. So I'm really grateful for that.
Yeah, you've got an incredible audience here in town. You have really
Right.
unusually avid ears out there for you.
Right.
Hope they find us.
Yeah, and hopefully the rest of the world will catch up and
That's right.
get to enjoy
Right.
the music you're creating.
So this is
Right.
our first Skype out.